Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character, after dying in his previous life, he wakes up inside of Bleach. Later, he becomes part of Squad Zero. After retiring from Squad Zero, he teaches Aizen. How will he change Aizen?
11th. Because this is the best captain to be. As long as you have enough strength, you can directly rise to the top and become the captain. Mole City Kenpachi, his tone was calm, and he said to Aizen, "In this world, human beings die every moment for various reasons. Among them, a large part of the souls of the deceased will be buried by the god of death. In Soul Society, there are still some who fell into Huko Mundo due to various desires. Souls that fall into Huko Mundo will be reorganized due to Huko Mundo's unique environment. If they can regain their consciousness during that process, they will degenerate into Huko Mundo. Even if it was originally just a whole soul, as long as it degenerates into a void, it will still have extremely powerful power. The existence of virtuality has long posed a great threat to this world. However, isn't it the duty of us, the god of death, to maintain the balance between souls and choose to fight against the void? That's what we're made for, isn't it? After hearing those words of Mole City Kenpachi, Aizen responded to Mole City Kenpachi and asked back to Mole City Kenpachi. He didn't understand why Mole City Kenpachi talked so much about Hollow. Yes, the god of death exists to fight against hollows. Mole City Kenpachi continued, but have you ever thought that there are only a few souls who can become the god of death, and the majority are the souls who degenerate into hollows? As long as Huko Mundo still exists, there will be an endless supply of hollows. The birth of... What does this have to do with what you did, Captain Mole City? Aizen is very smart, and he immediately realized that what Kenpachi said was related to what he had done before. Kenpachi did not hide anything, and continued. Since the Shinigami alone cannot fight, there are a huge number of hollows. So can we change our thinking and transform these souls in Rukengai that are larger in number than hollows, so that they can also have the power to fight against hollows? Transform the soul. Aizen was sincerely shocked. He finally understood what Mole City Kenpachi was doing before. Why did the spiritual pressure reaction suddenly appear on the body of the whole soul? Can this kind of thing really be done? Mole City Kenpachi's eyes were deep, and he glanced at Aizen. If you don't do some things, how will you know that you can't do them? As he spoke, his tone became deeper again. So, Team Aizen, can you help me keep this secret for the time being and not inform the Gotai 13 about it? Aizen's expression also became serious. He looked at Mole City Kenpachi and finally nodded. Hey, Master, transform the soul. Let the whole soul have spiritual pressure, and let them fight against the void. Is this really possible? In the Mao Spiritual Academy, Aizen looked at his master Zionai and asked sincerely. Although in front of Mole City Kenpachi, he promised not to tell the Gotai 13 what he saw. Aizen also knew very well that as Kenpachi of Mole City, the Gotai 13 would not believe his words before there was concrete evidence, so he chose to conceal it. But in Zionai, this very in front of the people of the Gotai 13, Aizen still told what he had learned, and then asked questions. Chapter 39. In the room, Zionai's eyes flickered a few times after hearing Aizen's question. He did not answer the question immediately. After a long time, he asked Aizen, Sao Syuk, in your opinion, what is the difference between a soul and a Shinigami? Aizen frowned. This question is also the question I am exploring now. When Xianyi saw this, he didn't show off, but directly gave the answer, Suo Jai and Po sleep. Haven't you noticed that only the god of death possesses these two things? The existence of soul sleep is the key to the god of death having spiritual power. This is also the biggest difference between us and the whole soul. Why do we have spiritual power? It's because besides the soul, we also have a soul, which is the soul sleep. The soul sleep is where we generate and store spiritual power. Therefore, if you want to deal with other gods of death in the future, you actually have no chance at all. If you need to kill the opponent, you only need to destroy the opponent's soul sleep, and the opponent's spiritual power will collapse. Of course, just in case, it's best to destroy the chain link as well. If the soul sleep is the existence that generates and stores spiritual power, then the lock knot is the place where spiritual power is transmitted and transporting. Through the linkage between the soul sleep and the lock knot, we can conduct the spiritual power to all parts of the body and then apply to it. But ordinary whole souls are not like that. They have no soul sleep, so they have no spiritual power and no knot. Where the death knot is, what they have is the chain of cause and effect. It can be said that the chain of cause and effect is the predecessor of the knot. When the knot of the god of death is destroyed, the chain of cause and effect will appear. When the chain of cause and effect continues to collapse and break, that is when the soul degenerates into a void. Process. When the chain of cause and effect completely disappeared, a huge hole appeared in the chest instead. This is the origin of the virtual hole. Having said this, you must also know that the god of death and the hollow actually have something in common. Zionai's eyes fell on Aizen. Aizen nodded. He immediately grasped the common point between them. The chain of cause and effect evolved upward, which is the knot. The existence of the knot allows the Shinigami to use it independently. Spiritual power. The chain of cause and effect degrades and disappears, becoming a void hole. The void hole is a symbol of void. Since the knot is so important, then does the void have spiritual power, because it has a void hole similar to the knot. Aizen's thoughts kept passing by, and he finally understood how to make ordinary whole souls possess spiritual power. This matter is actually not difficult. In other words, if you want to let the whole soul have spiritual power, the way is. Aizen suddenly understood and said to Zionai. Zionai responded to Aizen's words. Yes, destroy their chain of cause and effect and let them degenerate into virtual beings. The chain of cause and effect cannot evolve into a knot, and even if it has a knot, an ordinary whole soul does not have soul sleep, which is where spiritual power is stored. But it is an extremely simple matter to make the chain of cause and effect disappear and become a virtual whole. Because they do not have soul sleep, although they cannot store spiritual power in the core of their bodies, they have void holes that can instinctively devour spirit children from the outside world. When many spirit children enter their bodies, most of them will escape. But it will still be partially integrated into its body, which is why Sue's body is stronger than our Shinigami. The existence of the void makes them feel empty inside, and they instinctively desire to devour everything. Maybe the power possessed by a void is not strong, but this emptiness and desire to devour will make them instinctively kill each other and instinctively devour other souls. When multiple virtual beings are combined together, many consciousnesses among them will determine a winner and then achieve evolution. Therefore, there is no need to marvel at the power of Daxu, because each Daxu is actually composed of countless souls. Xian Yi explained to Aizen in detail the difference between the god of death and the whole soul, and also the difference between the god of death and the hollow. Aizen finally understood the purpose of Mole City Kenpachi. In other words, Mole City Kenpachi's purpose is to transform the entire soul of Rukengai into hollow. Then use Su to fight against Su. How could such a thing be possible? At this stage, Aizen, although he is curious about many things, has still not violated the death god's prohibition. He cannot accept what Mole City Kenpachi did. This is a treasonous thing. Zainai did not answer Aizen's question. In his mind, he thought of what he heard from Kairaku Shunsui in Yugantang about the past of Kenpachi of Mole City. The family was harmed by the nobles, and all the family members died in the hands of Kaiun. Although the final report was but the incident at that time, still left a shadow on Molijo Kenpachi. Did this prompt him to instinctively hate Yuxu? As for why he didn't hate the nobles, it was probably because he framed the Molijo family at that time. All the nobles must have been killed by him. Only the hollows are different. The Huko Mundo is vast, and there are so many hollows. They have caused great harm to this world. Therefore, Mole City Kenpachi wants to kill all the hollows. Eradicate them all. From this point of view, Mole City Kenpachi is actually a very great person. Although it seems a bit despicable to transform the souls of Rukengai and make them into weapons to fight against hollows, it is consistent with his great goal. Compared to this, these sacrifices are nothing. So, what do you think of what Mole City Kenpachi did? Saos Yuk, are you prepared to remain neutral and keep this secret for him, or choose to help Mole City Kenpachi, or stand against him? Zainai's sharp eyes fell on Aizen. Aizen felt some pressure. But soon he made a decision. Perhaps Mole City Kenpachi's original intention is great, but the duty of our Shinigami is to maintain the balance between souls. There is no doubt that Mole City Kenpachi's behavior will destroy the balance between souls. I'm sorry. I beg to differ. Aizen expressed his attitude. Then he said seriously to Zainai, Master, although I promised Mole City Kenpachi, I will help him keep secrets and not tell the Gotai 13 about what he has done. But I still want to try and stop him. This should not conflict with my promise to take revenge secretly. Interesting. In response to Aizen's words, Zainai just curled his lips and gave a subtle smile. Chapter 40. The era of Kariashiki Kenpachi has come to an end. The current Kenpachi is the 8th generation Kenpachi Mole Castle Kenpachi. This is the era of Mole City Kenpachi. Mole City Kenpachi is cold and taciturn, but he is a hero who takes the lead when facing the invasion of Daxu. Although he has not been Kenpachi for a long time, he has indeed made many Shinigami in the 11th Division put aside their hatred towards him. Prejudice, and then identified with the new Kenpachi. Naturally, the Gotai 13's evaluation of the new Kenpachi also tended to be positive. However, no one knows that this new Kenpachi is actually an out-and-out villain. He is ambitious and wants to break the balance between souls. What would a world without virtuality be like? On the way to Rukengai, Aizen thought of the question his master asked him before he left. He couldn't understand this question. The master immediately told him the answer. The real world, Huko Mundo and Soul Society, these are the world of Kizzy and the world of Ryako. The world of Kizzy appears. Seemingly it is a small but nourishing world for two spirit children. If there were no present world, there would be no souls in the spirit child world. If the present world is regarded as a lever on the scale, then Soul Society and Huko Mundo are the weights on both sides of the lever. In the past, the souls of the two worlds were in a state of balance, so the world was extremely stable. But if one day there is no virtual existence in Huko Mundo, then the entire balance will involuntarily tilt to one side, and then the whole world will fall into a state of collapse. The only way to resolve the state of collapse is to erase an equal amount of souls in Soul Society, turn them into souls, and integrate them into the world. Only then can the balance be restored to balance. What is the reason, and what is the mystery? Aizen doesn't understand. But he knows that it is not a good thing once all the hollows in Huko Mundo are killed. Therefore, he must stop Mole City Kenpachi. Aizen has a kind of pride and a sense of responsibility. Since he discovered the conspiracy of Mole City Kenpachi, he has the obligation to solve the matter. Of course, in addition to this, Aizen Ran is also a very principled person. He keeps his promise. Since he promised Mole City Kenpachi not to inform the Gotai 13 about this matter, he really chose not to inform the Gotai 13 about this matter. As for telling his master was not from the Gotai 13. In addition, another reason why Aizen mustered up the courage to face Mole City Kenpachi directly was that his master finally said something to him. Just go ahead and do it. If you can't do it, master, I will personally take care of it for you. Rukangai North, District 76. There are 320 districts in the entire Rukangai, and each district is very large. Although taken individually, it is not as big as Serete, but it is definitely not small. When the souls in the world come to Soul Society, will be randomly assigned to each zone. As for which district you are assigned to, it all depends on luck. If you are lucky, you will be assigned to the front area, which has sufficient supplies. Those who are unlucky are assigned to the back area, and even the water source needs to be fought with others. Mole City Kenpachi has his own ambitions. He wants to transform the residents of Rukangai into war weapons and let them conquer Huko Mundo. The residents of Rukangai are all ordinary souls. They have no soul sleep and no knots, so they cannot possess spiritual power, so naturally they cannot fight against the hollow. So is there a way to give them spiritual powers? The solution Mole City Kenpachi came up with was to destroy their chain of cause and effect. When the chain of cause and effect is destroyed, a hole will appear in the soul's chest, which is the predecessor of the void hole. If we use special techniques to stabilize their state after they appear hollow, can they be given spiritual power without becoming hollow? Although this trend is irreversible, as long as they can gain strength in a short period of time, that is enough. Mole Castle Kenpachi's Zanpakuto is very special. He uses the power of his sword to constantly transform the entire soul of Rukangai. Because the atmosphere in the back of Rukangai is not good, the souls usually fight over water sources, resulting in many deaths and injuries. Some souls disappeared due to his experiments, and no one could notice it. Ah! The sound of screams came from the mouth of a middle-aged Genhun. His chain of cause and effect was destroyed, and his whole person continued to evolve in the direction of the void. He was about to degenerate into a real void, an invisible force. Sweeping past, his spirit body was completely shattered, and then turned into a spirit sun, dissipating between heaven and earth. Failed again. Mole City, Kenpachi's low words sounded. He was not angry at all after the experiments failed. Instead, there seemed to be an invisible presence beside his ears that kept nagging and taunting him. Mole City Kenpachi, I was also a little annoyed by the ridicule. I couldn't help but angrily yelled, "Shut up." As a result, this angry rebuke not only failed to shut up the invisible existence invisible to outsiders, but actually made the other party become more and more proud, and more sarcastic words were said by the other party. Mole City Kenpachi saw that the other party was unwilling to shut up, and simply returned to that taciturn look. Since you won't shut up, I'll shut up. So sometimes, Mole City Kenpachi's taciturnity is not born, but forced. Ren, who has such a chatty Zanpakuto, who likes to appear next to you when there is nothing wrong, talking a lot of nonsense, and will become taciturn. The most important thing is that Shiit was his own sword, and there was no way to avoid these things. Another experiment failed. Mole City Kenpachi was about to find another whole soul for experiment. At this moment, a figure wearing a black Death Tyrant suit appeared in front of him in front. Mole City Kenpachi. After the other party saw Mole City Kenpachi, he seemed to have made some preparations, and his expression was serious. Team Aizen, you want to stop me? Mole City Kenpachi's eyes fell on Aizen, calmly. Aizen said solemnly, I promised you that I will not inform the Gotai 13 about what you have done, but it is my duty as a Shinigami. But it makes me unable to ignore the things you have done. So I can only choose to stop you personally. Chapter 41. Then you are really stupid. After Mole City Kenpachi heard Aizen's words, he commented on Aizen's behavior. Aizen's expression did not change much. He still looked serious. Maybe, in your opinion, I am indeed a bit stupid, but at least at this moment, I cannot tolerate your attempt to destroy the balance between souls. Mole City Kenpachi, you are not worthy to be a Shinigami. Mole City Kenpachi did not answer Aizen's words. Aizen knew that since Mole City Kenpachi decided to do such a thing, it would be difficult to be convinced by outsiders. But he still wanted to stop Mole City Kenpachi. So, how to stop it? Where is Mole City Kenpachi? He thought of the way to inherit the name Kenpachi. Only by defeating the previous generation of Kenpachi can he become the new Kenpachi. Therefore, the only way he wants to stop Mole City Kenpachi is defeat him. Break it into pieces, mirror flowers and water moon. The Zanpakuto was pulled out by Aizen. He read out the liberation language of his Zanpakuto and interpreted it. Like a stone falling into a calm lake, ripples appeared. Aizen, after the sword was released, Mole City Kenpachi felt such a trance, and then the trance disappeared. He saw Aizen still holding the sword. After the initial release, the sword in Aizen's hand did not change much, and the shallow fighting state is very similar. Mole City Kenpachi doesn't know the ability of Aizen's Zanpakuto, but he doesn't care very much. Now that Aizen has chosen to swing the sword, what reason does he have not to use it? In his case, he did not wear a Zanpakuto, nor did he see any traces of the existence of the sword. However, when he raised his hand, a sword made of pure spirit appeared in his hand. Kaido blade. Or something else. Seeing this scene, Aizen was a little surprised. As we all know, the Shinigami does not have the ability to gather spiritual children. This ability is unique to the Quincy. The Shinigami wants to use the spiritual power in his body. It can only be released by using the ghost path. In addition, it can allow spiritual power to attach to the soles of the feet and cause friction with the spiritual beings in the air, allowing oneself to burst out with powerful speed. This is the principle of Shanpo. But what Mole City Kenpachi did now was beyond Aizen's expectation. Without chanting words, a sword made of condensed souls appeared in Mole City Kenpachi's hand. How on earth did he do it? What about? If you figure out the reason, you may be able to make breakthroughs in many of your researches. For example, combining white fighting with Kaido, combining cutting skills with Kaido, these topics can all yield results. But Aizen also he knew that now was not the time to ask questions to Molijo Kenpachi. After freeing his Zanpakuto and making sure that Molijo Kenpachi had seen his first release, Aizen also developed some confidence in his heart. The ability of his Zanpakuto, he knew it all too well. When he first awakened his Zanpakuto and mastered the first Kai, Aizen realized how powerful his Zanpakuto was. It was this power that actually made him a little frightened. Get up. So he chose to hide his Zanpakuto's ability. Anyway, this is also the prerogative of the Shinigami. After all, the Zanpakuto is the Shinigami's greatest support. The Shinigami has the right to hide the ability of his sword from outsiders. Of course, he would inevitably use it in battle, so that others could see his Zanpakuto ability. Therefore, in front of outsiders, Aizen lied a little bit saying that his sword was the flowing water Zanpakuto is a sword that uses the refraction of light and mist to create illusions in the enemy, and then buys time for oneself to attack the enemy unprepared and kill the enemy. Such an ability is naturally a bit useless, and it is an auxiliary sword. But in the long history of Soul Society, all kinds of weird and even more useless knives have appeared. The members of the fifth team also believed in Aizen without doubting the lies. In fact, Aizen the Zanpakuto's true ability, although it is also auxiliary, is not the flow system, but the illusion system. Its ability is complete hypnosis, which can dominate the opponent's five senses and allow it to perceive the appearance, form, and appearance of a specific object. The quality, feeling, and even smell are completely believed by the owner. It can be said that with the power of the knife, Aizen can turn a deer into a horse and completely turn a person into a puppet under his control. Of course, there is a price for hypnotizing the other person. That is, every time he hypnotizes an object, he needs to consume a huge amount of Aizen's spiritual power. Fortunately, what Aizen does not lack most is spiritual power. His spiritual power is extremely powerful. It is still growing to this day, and Aizen is also, I don't know where my limit is. The next moment, Aizen held Kyoka Suijutsu, performed Shunpo, and suddenly attacked and killed Mole City Kenpachi. Looking at Aizen's actions, Mole City Kenpachi disapproved and waved his hand. The long sword made of condensed souls faced Aizen's attack. However, unexpectedly, his attack failed. Instead, he felt a stinging sensation in the next moment. Mole City Kenpachi suddenly realized that he was injured. He looked sideways. He discovered that Aizen, who was originally right in front of him, came to his side at some point. Is Aizen's speed too fast? Or have you made a mistake? Mole City Kenpachi couldn't understand and frowned slightly. He then launched an attack on Aizen. Even in order to grasp Aizen's whereabouts more accurately, he also used the ability of the Zanpakuto to use his spiritual power. Inject it into all the inorganic matter around you, making the surrounding trees and stones become your eyes and ears, so as to observe where Aizen is. As a result, a problem was discovered. The Aizen he saw through his five senses, including spiritual and visual senses, was beside him. However, with the help of the Zanpakuto's ability, there were some deviations in the traces of Aizen. Is it the ability of the sword? Mole City Kenpachi thought about it. His face showed no clues. He continued to attack Aizen. In addition to slashing, he also displayed a powerful Kaido. He was above the Kaido, possessing an extremely terrifying talent. Even if the power of the ghost path will be reduced if he gives up chanting, it will not be much weaker. At least, the ghost path that Mole City Kenpachi gives up chanting is enough to rival many low-level Shinigami's complete chanting. The ghost path under him. However, whether it was a slash or a ghost path, basically everything fell into the void. On the contrary, it was himself, because he could not grasp Aizen's whereabouts and was used by Aizen in strange ways, and left several scars on his body, and the situation gradually became very unfavorable for Mole City Kenpachi. Chapter 42. This is an incredible thing. Mole Castle Kenpachi was the strong man who defeated Kenpachi Yashiki, once known as the strongest Kenpachi. He was the 8th generation Kenpachi and the captain of the 11th division of the Gotai 13th division. Aizen was only the 5th division. It's just the 13th seat of the team. Even among the many seats, it is still ranked at the bottom. As a result, at this moment, when facing Mole City Kenpachi, he actually had the upper hand. Feeling the condition of his body, Mole City Kenpachi gained a little more understanding of Aizen. All we can say is that the Gotai 13 team cannot be underestimated. Sometimes, a seemingly low-ranking official will suddenly give you a huge surprise. But Mole City Kenpachi still accepted such a thing without too much shock. After all, he himself was once a blockbuster person. A Shinigami who had never been in the Gotai 13 directly challenged Kenpachi Kariashiki and defeated Kenpachi Kariashiki. This also shocked many Shinigami in the Gotai 13. Mole City Kenpachi still did not give up his attack, even if all his attacks fall on it. At the same time, secretly, he used his Zanpakuto's ability to continuously scatter his own souls in the surrounding world, integrating them into all inanimate things in the world. As long as this world is under his complete control, no matter how weird Aizen's methods were, there was still nothing he could do. Finally, I don't know if it was a coincidence or it was something that was bound to happen as Mole City Kenpachi integrated his spiritual power into the world. Mole City Kenpachi merged into the spiritual power of heaven and earth and touched the mirror in Aizen's hand. In an instant, Aizen has lost control of the 8-5 senses of the Mole City sword. He no longer has to consume a huge amount of spiritual pressure to control the 8-5 senses of the Mole City sword. However, this is not a good thing for Aizen, because this means that his ability of mirror flowers and water moon has been cracked. The condition for activating Jing Hua Shui Yue is that the 5 senses of the person who sees its liberation will be controlled by it. Apart from giving up controlling the opponent's 5 senses on his own, there is only one way to crack his ability, and that is when he activated his 5-sense control ability, the opponent touched the blade of his Zanpakuto. In the previous battle, Aizen was certain that Mole City Kenpachi did not touch the blade of his Zanpakuto. So why was my ability cracked? Aizen was shocked. Before he could react, Mole City Kenpachi also realized this with the help of his ability to be the eyes and ears of the world. It seems like your ability has been cracked. Then it will be my turn to fight back. The 63 of the Broken Paths, Thunder Raw Cannon. This is the Thunder Raw Cannon after abandoning the chant. Mole City Kenpachi's palm is aimed at Aizen, and golden thunder spurts out towards Aizen. This is not the end. In Mole City, Kenpachi releases the Thunder Raw Cannon at that time. Countless voices sounded one after another from all directions. Those were all the voices of Mole City Kenpachi. The 63 of the Broken Paths, Thunder Raw Cannon. The 63 of the Broken Paths, Thunder Raw Cannon. This is, of course, not an echo of Mole City Kenpachi's words. Instead, he used the power of his Zanpakuto to turn everything in the surrounding world into his ears, eyes, hands, and feet, and used them to perform ghost ways. This is something only he can do. Ghost Road Dua sings. In an instant, dozens or even hundreds of ghosts attacked a target at the same time. Even if their power was not as powerful as the ghosts after chanting completely, it was even more powerful than the ghosts after the chanting was abandoned. Slightly weaker, but when the quantity is large enough, the quantity is enough to rewrite the quality. The vast number of thunder light balls engulfed Aizen's body. Even though Aizen ran Shumpo immediately, he could not escape easily. It can only burst out its own powerful spiritual pressure and use the powerful spiritual pressure to resist the incoming thunder cannon. Boom, boom, boom. The roaring sound came out, and the powerful spiritual waves swept out. Even if this place is the area behind Rukangai. When a battle of this level broke out, it was still captured by the Technical Development Bureau of the 12th Division. Although the 12th Division was located in the Serete, the area monitored by the Shinigami, it's not just as simple as the Serete. In Soul Society and everywhere in the world, There are spiritual wave monitoring devices of the 12th Division. When there are spiritual waves that exceed the rules, the 12th Division will immediately issue an early warning. In the past, it was with this method that when Yaoxu appeared in the Soul Society or in the present world, the god of death would immediately discover it, and then send the god of death to purify it. At this moment, Mole City saw the battle between Hatcher and Aizen in terms of the burst of spiritual pressure has undoubtedly reached the captain level. When a captain-level Shinigami fights in Rukengai, the impact it brings will not be affected at all. No smaller than Daxu appearing in Rukengai. What on earth is going on? The 12th Division immediately informed the 1st Division about this matter. With the help of many years ago, when Xian Yi was the captain of the 12th Division, the report of the developed Spirit Sun fax instrument was directly printed out by the death god of the first team. After a while, it appeared on the desk of the captain. When the captain learned about this, he immediately concluded that the matter was not trivial. Then he sent a message to Kairaku Shunsui, the captain of the 8th Division, to go and find out what was going on. No matter which two captain-level Shinigami were fighting in Rukengai, Kairaku Shunsui should be able to stop it if he went there. In Rukengai, Aizen didn't know that his burst of powerful spiritual pressure would cause huge commotion. After finally resisting a wave of Mole City, Kenpachi's ghost duo singing, Aizen looked a little embarrassed. As a result, Mole City Kenba's new offensive came one after another. 9090 of the Broken Path, Black Coffin. This ghost path is Aizen's favorite ghost path. As a result, he never thought that one day it would be used by others to deal with him. Moreover, it was not a black coffin. Instead, it was multiple chance, just like before. The black coffins that followed. Countless black coffins emerged one after another, engulfing Aizen. Even if Aizen's spiritual pressure is strong, at this period, his strength is barely close to that of an average captain. If he uses the ability of his Zanpakuto, he could compete with an ordinary captain and catch the opponent off guard. But after his Zanpakuto's ability was cracked, he quickly fell into a disadvantage against the powerful Captain Kenpachi Molijo, and then lost. Chapter 43. It can only be said that Aizen still seems too immature at this time. Although due to his naturally strong spiritual pressure, his spiritual pressure has been in a rapid growth stage and has reached the level of captain. However, in terms of other abilities, he is still a little immature. If you use the Zanpakuto's special ability, you can have a chance encounter with an ordinary captain. Unfortunately, what he met was Mole City Kenpachi. When it comes to the weird abilities of the Zanpakuto, Molijo Kenpachi's Zanpakuto is not inferior to Aizen's sword at all, and even, to a certain extent, restrains Aizen's Zanpakuto. After Jing Hua Shui Yue was inexplicably cracked, Aizen immediately fell into a disadvantage. Molijo Kenpachi cracked his Kyuuka Suijutsu, and until now, he still hasn't figured out what Molijo Kenpachi's Zanpakuto ability is. It should be said that he didn't see Mole City Kenpachi's sword at all. Although Molijo Kenpachi condensed his spirit into a sword, it was obvious that it was not his Zanpakuto. However, Aizen still felt the same as Kairaku Shunsui. Even if the existence of the knife cannot be seen, the knife must be there. Lost. Shrouded in multiple black coffins, Aizen's body became dripping with blood. After he first entered the Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy and understood what a death was, he knew that his talent was very good. He could easily master the courses in the school. He could master it, and even more easily resonated with Asata and awakened his own Zanpakuto. Later, when he joined the Gotai 13, Aizen discovered that ordinary Shinigami were nothing more than that. To him, he was once too high. The extremely powerful Shinigami does not seem to be as powerful as imagined. Only the captains of the Gotai 13 are still in Aizen's eyes for the time being. However, Aizen firmly believes that as long as he is given enough time, he will be able to do it sooner or later, reaching that level. Because the captain is so powerful, it can be seen. There is only one person who is different from Aizen. That is his master, Zayanai. He is obviously just a calligraphy class teacher at Zhenu Spiritual Arts Academy, but he has a personality that is inconsistent with his status. The power and mystery of the master. How strong is the master? Aizen doesn't know. But this does not affect his respect for the master. If it were not for the master, his vision would still be limited to the vision of an ordinary Shinigami, and he would not be able to see the wider world. The world. Unfortunately, at this moment, he still couldn't hold on until the master arrived. Feeling the injuries on his body, Aizen sighed. Mole City Kenpachi, the captain of the 11th Division, can be said to be it taught him a deep lesson, made him see himself clearly, and also shattered some of his pride. Just when Aizen was thinking this, a deep voice suddenly sounded in his ears. That's enough, Xiaoxiuk, you're good enough. After all, your opponent is the captain of the 11th Division, the man who bears the title of Kenpachi. Aaron was stunned when he heard this. Master. He thought he was hallucinating. Then he saw a figure in white clothes standing in front of him. This white clothes was not Haori, the captain of the Gotai 13, but Mao, the uniform of the Spiritual Arts Academy. Aizen came back to his senses and immediately realized that he had not hallucinated, and the person in front of him was his master. Mole City Kenpachi also saw the figure blocking Aizen. He doesn't know Xian Yi, but from Xian Yi's actions, he can guess Xian Yi's purpose. Are you the one who wants to stop me too? Xian Yi said calmly. Su Yaoji is my disciple, and it is my acquiescence that he comes to stop you. Although he acquiesces to his behavior as a master, he cannot just watch his disciple die. That's it. Mole City Kenpachi's expression was calm, and he still held the sword condensed by the souls in his hand, but pointed the blade at Xian Yi. In fact, he didn't want to make things too big. He just wanted to quietly drift around. Street verified his idea, tried to transform the whole soul into a weapon that could be used for fighting, and finally went to conquer Huko Mundo. However, Aizen discovered the matter first. Today, Aizen and his master, he even stood in front of him trying to stop him. In order to realize his long-cherished wish, Mole City Kenpachi could only choose to kill the person in front of him. Chapter 96 of the Broken Tao, Cremation with One Sword. A low voice came out. Aizen behind, Xian Yi looked horrified. Of course he knew that cremation with one sword was a sacrifice to break the path. In the ghost path, it was listed as a forbidden technique, because one of the conditions for its use is his body will be burned first, and it is at the cost of sacrificing a part of his body that he can use the broken path. Previously, Kenpachi of Mole City used the plural number 90 broken path black coffin, which Aizen had already felt I saw the other party's attainments in the ghost path. I didn't expect that Mole City Kenpachi would actually perform one sword creation at this moment. It was the same as the previous black coffin. One sword creation was also performed under plural chants. I don't know. How did Mole City Kenpachi do it? He obviously didn't wave his arms, but many huge flaming blades appeared between the sky and the earth, killing Zayanai. You really think highly of me. Facing the many flaming blades approaching, Zayanai commented. Mole City Kenpachi did not speak, but his attitude was undoubtedly revealed. Although Aizen is only a chief official, he is very powerful. And you, as Aizen the Master, is obviously more powerful. In any case, It is necessary to take it seriously. Zayanai looked at the flaming blade that was coming towards him, and low words came from his mouth. 9090 of the broken path, black coffin. It was also the broken path after giving up chanting. In an instant, the black coffin enveloped it and Aizen. Aizen, who was once again enveloped by the black coffin, did not feel pain. On the contrary, he only felt the rumbling sound outside. It kept coming. The black coffin was a powerful barrier against enemies in the past, but now it has become a protective barrier to protect them. The black coffin dispersed. The surrounding area became a mess. Mole City Kenpachi's body was seriously injured, seems to be a little heavier too. Although you can perform multiple ghost ways in this way, it seems that you are not free of charge. Xianyu looked at Mole City Kenpachi seriously. Mole City Kenpachi said solemnly, "Although my condition is not good, it is still enough to defeat you." Xianyu smiled faintly, obviously not agreeing with this result. Chapter 44. Zayanai simply gave up chanting and used the black coffin no. 90 breaking path, which easily blocked the Kaido after the multiple chants he used with the help of his Zanpakuto ability. Mole City Kenpachi couldn't help but look seriously at the man in front of him, who was not wearing the Death Overlord uniform. There are crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the Soul Society, and he knows this. He didn't look down on Xian, just because he didn't wear the Death Bar uniform. Just like himself, he only became famous after challenging Kariashiki Kenpachi, who can tell clearly that the person in front of him is not a strong man who is hiding. To deal with the strong, you must go all out. Mole City Kenpachi thought so. As a result, he decisively used the ability he had against Kariashiki Kenpachi. This ability is the ability of his Zanpakuto. Yulu Tuolu is the name of his sword. When he was in desperate situation, it was the awakening of this sword that saved his life and killed all his enemies. He didn't know what the liberation language of the sword's initial liberation was, because after awakening the sword, he easily reached the level of swastika. After that, he remained in the state of swastika and never lifted it. Even at this moment, he has not released his swastika. And his ability after understanding the swastika is that he can integrate his own spiritual power into the substances composed of all spiritual suns. The simplest ones are those inanimate substances. When his spiritual suns are integrated into them, you can manipulate them at will and turn them into your own eyes and ears. This is also the reason why Mole City Kenpachi was able to use multiple ghost chants before, because everything around him has become his clone. With the help of the clones, even if a sacrificial path such as cremation with a knife is used, these clones will be sacrificed. Of course, there is a price. That is, once the material integrated with his spiritual power is destroyed, he himself will also suffer considerable backlash. The scope of this fusion is unlimited. Theoretically, if Mole City Kenpachi has enough time and spiritual power, he can turn the entire Serete into his clone and monitor anything that happens within it. Except for inanimate matter. Mole City Kenpachi can also integrate his spiritual power into living material bodies, such as the body of a Shinigami. But this kind of thing is slightly more difficult, because the Shinigami itself is an aggregation of high-intensity spiritual power. The more powerful the Shinigami, the stronger its spiritual power and spiritual pressure. It is difficult to control the opponent's body just by relying on the spiritual power that Mole City Kenpachi has integrated into the opponent's body, or even will soon be annihilated due to conflict with the opponent's own spiritual power. The collapse of the spiritual power would have caused Mole City Kenpachi to suffer an equal amount of damage. Therefore, normally, Mole City Kenpachi would not do this. He will only use this move when he encounters a truly powerful enemy, and his ordinary methods cannot work. When facing Kawashiki Kenpachi, he integrated his spiritual power into Kayashiki Kenpachi's body, and then manipulated the air that was breathed into his body through his breathing, turning the air into an invisible sharp blade and destroying Kayashiki from the inside. Kenpachi was severely injured. Although because of the powerful spiritual pressure that Kariashiki Kenpachi erupted, the spiritual power he integrated into his body was quickly destroyed, and he suffered a backlash and was seriously injured, but Kariashiki Kenpachi died directly. Compared to the results, this is something worth doing. At this moment, Mole City Kenpachi repeated his old tricks. He integrated his spiritual power into the surrounding air. As Xianyi breathed in and out, the air infused with spiritual power immediately entered Xianyi's body. Because Xianyi is a god of death, there is extremely powerful spiritual power in the body of the god of death, and the spiritual power containing the will of Mole City Kenpachi enters it, and he is under great pressure immediately. He was walking on thin ice, struggling to let his spiritual power exist in Xianyi's body. Then the air turned into an air blade. Want to kill Xianyi from within. However, when Mole City Kenpachi did this, he suddenly found that the air blade he had condensed with his spiritual power disappeared. Not only did the air blade disappear, but the spiritual power contained in it also disappeared. The dissipation of spiritual power made Mole City Kenpachi's face become paler, and his aura suddenly weakened. How did you do it? Mole City Kenpachi had doubts. Just like he had previously cracked Aizen's Kyuuka Suijutsu with the help of his Zanpakuto, many doubts had arisen in Aizen's heart. The difference was that Aizen put his doubts on in his heart. He didn't ask. But Mole City Kenpachi asked directly and expressed his curiosity. Because at this moment, he discovered that not only the spiritual power he integrated into Xianyi's body disappeared. The spiritual power that was integrated into all things around him also disappeared. The spiritual power was decomposing into its original spirit children. His will lost its place of residence and then disappeared directly. As a feedback, his soul immediately suffered. He was seriously injured, and there were extremely serious wounds on his body. But even after suffering such an injury, Mole City Kenpachi endured it silently without saying a word. It can only be said that he is worthy of the man who bears the name of Kenpachi. Is a real man. Very simple. Xianyi looked at the curious Mole City Kenpachi and gave the answer. Our world is the world of spirit children. As long as you control the spirit children, you can resolve most crises. Unless you don't use spirit children to attack me, but as long as your attack contains spirit children, it can be cracked by me. Mole City Kenpachi's pupils shrank slightly, and he looked a little moved. Aizen behind Xian, he was also a little surprised. How is it possible to control a spirit child? Has the master actually reached this point? Xianyi ignored Aizen's shock, looked at Mole City Kenpachi, and continued, Your ability is very strange. It can make your voice and spiritual power appear in all directions, and then use multiple ghost ways to chant. Previously, I felt that there was a new spiritual power in my body, which condensed the air into a sharp blade. I think this spiritual power should belong to you. Let me guess, what are your abilities? Xianyi pondered for a while, and then said to Mole City Kenpachi, Is it fusion? Or incarnate all things? It's fusion. Mole City Kenpachi didn't let Xianyi continue to guess, and directly gave the accurate answer. Chapter 45. There is no doubt that Xianyi guessed it right. Mole City Kenpachi's ability is fusion. At this moment, because the spiritual power belonging to him around him dissipated, and the spiritual power integrated into Zionai's body also disappeared inexplicably. Mole City Kenpachi suffered a backlash and was directly seriously injured. He fell into a disadvantage. Knowing that there was no hope of making a comeback, he simply gave away his secret confidence to Xian Yi. I can integrate my own spiritual power into the matter composed of all the surrounding spirits, and then control them. Among them, inanimate matter is the best to control. Although there are living beings, such as the god of death, I can also control them, integrating spiritual power into their bodies. But the god of death itself has high-strength spiritual power, so I can't control their bodies, but I can still do something. For example, condense the air into a sharp blade and attack me inside my body. The corners of Zionai's lips raised slightly, and he looked at Mole City Kenpachi in front of him. I was not present when you fought with Kariyashiki Kenpachi, but I also heard about the situation of that battle. Not long after you fought with him, he had many stab wounds inexplicably on his body. You used this method, it might hurt him. Mole City Kenpachi didn't hide anything and nodded. Yes. Aizen, who was behind Xian Yi, was shocked again when he heard the brief conversation between his master and Molijo Kenpachi. After the shock, he fell into deep thought again. Molijo Kenpachi's Zanpakuto's ability is really weird. By using it, his own spiritual power is integrated into the material composed of all spiritual suns, and he controls it. If these things become his clones, no wonder there were so many voices of Mole City Kenpachi when he used Ghost Way. Mole City Kenpachi can use so many ghost ways in an instant. It turns out that this is what happened. When his spiritual power is integrated into everything around him, the seemingly lifeless vegetation around him becomes a clone of Kenpachi in Mole City. Except in addition, Aizen also has the answer to why Mole City Kenpachi cracked his Kayuka Suijutsu. When his spiritual power is integrated into everything around him, including the air, it becomes a part of Mole City Kenpachi's body. And the way to crack Kayuka Suijutsu is to touch Kayuka Suijutsu's blade when he activates the ability of hypnosis. Such a thing is naturally difficult for ordinary people to do, because they don't know the reality of Kayuka Suijutsu. And for Mole City Kenpachi, he doesn't need to know this at all. When he activates Kayuka Suijutsu, he is already in Mole City body. When his sword touches the air, just like if Mole City Kenpachi touches his sword. No wonder Kayuka Suijutsu's ability will fail. After understanding everything, Aizen's eyes suddenly became deep. Interesting. Although he was defeated by Mole City Kenpachi, it made Aizen understand something. That is, Kayuka Suijutsu is not omnipotent, and it is not as unsolvable as imagined. In the final analysis, you still have to become stronger. Only one's own strength is the foundation. After understanding the reason why Kayuka Suijutsu was cracked, Aizen thought of other things. Although such a knife is very powerful, it also comes at a price. Although neither the master nor I launched any attack on him, he was seriously injured directly. Is it because the surrounding material that was integrated with his spiritual power was destroyed? One's own spiritual power is integrated into all things, turning all things into clones of oneself. However, if the clone is damaged, it will also be fed back to the main body. After understanding this, Aizen feels that although Mole City Kenpachi's sword is still very powerful, it seems to be nothing more than that. At least this power requires a corresponding price. What a powerful knife! Xianyu praised Mole City Kenpachi. Mole City Kenpachi didn't have much to be proud of, but I still lost, didn't I? Controlling the Spirit Sun, is this the ability of your Zanpakuto? If so, it seems that I lost unfairly. Mole City Kenpachi speculated about what happened before. Combining what Zionai said, He guessed that it might be Zayanai's Zanpakuto's ability that caused all the spiritual power of him to blend into everything around him, to dissipate and turn into the purest spirit sun. This ability was undoubtedly a restraint on his Zanpakuto ability. Not long after he implemented the plan, he directly encountered his nemesis. Mole City Kenpachi did not regret himself for this. For him, victory is victory, and defeat is defeat. When he met Zayanai, maybe fate wanted to stop him. Zayanai looked at Mole City Kenpachi, who was still extremely calm, and was a little surprised. For this Kenpachi, he didn't know many things. In his previous life, the original works he had read were limited to anime. However, he had heard that Kenpachi appeared in official novels. It seemed that Yu Mumen escaped from prison after the decisive battle with Aizen, and had a fight with Zaraki Kenpachi, but the more detailed things are not clear because I have not read the novel. Zayanai also doesn't know why the other party was imprisoned in Mumen. However, combined with Lan from what Ran discovered, it can be speculated that Mole City Kenpachi was imprisoned in infernal affairs, which may be related to what he was doing at the moment. After his thoughts flashed, Zayanai said to Mole City Kenpachi again, "I heard from Kairaku Shunsui. Let me tell you something. You were born into a noble family, but because of certain things, all your family members died in the hands of Su. But I still don't understand something. Why do you want to transform the soul of Rukengai to fight against Huko Mundo and destroy all hollows? Although it's true that your family died in Su's hands. But the culprit of everything should be the nobles, right?" After Aizen heard these words from his master, he also looked at Mole City Kenpachi curiously. He didn't know about Mole City Kenpachi's past. At this moment, after a few words from his master, he did know a few things. It turned out that Mole City Kenpachi's family members all died in the hands of hollows. No wonder he wants to destroy all the hollows. However, what does it mean that the culprit is a noble? After Mole City Kenpachi heard Zayanai's words, he was in a daze. He didn't expect that after so many years, someone would check his past and know what happened to him. He couldn't help but think of the execution led by those nobles many years ago. Daxu was summoned to the execution ground by them using special means. Then his family members died in Daxu's hands one by one. In order to protect him, his only sister chose to die with Daxu. However, the nobles were still not satisfied, and summoned he found a new Daxu and wanted to kill him completely. Chapter 46. At the last moment, it was Yulu Tuoliu who appeared and saved his life. If it weren't for Yulu Tuoliu, he would have died at that time. After withdrawing his thoughts, Mole City Kenpachi said to Zayanai, "You know what happened to me. I am very surprised. But since you asked this question, I will not hesitate to give you an answer. Although the nobles were the culprits of everything, my enemy had been killed by me long ago. But Su is different. Hollows are fallen souls. As long as they still exist, this world of souls will always face threats. Although the god of death is working hard to purify the hollows, it is true that the god of death alone wants to reduce the huge number by relying on a small number of them. It is simply impossible to get rid of all the emptiness. So you want to transform these whole souls in Rukengai and turn them into war weapons to fight against the virtual." Zion Yi's eyes fell on Mole City Kenpachi's face, and he praised Mole City Kenpachi. It is indeed a good idea. After saying this, his tone changed again. But have you ever thought that your behavior will destroy the balance between souls? Balance between souls. This is not the first time Mole City Kenpachi has heard this statement. Aizen had said in front of him earlier that the duty of the Shinigami is to maintain the balance between souls. I have never seen the so-called balance. What I have seen is that the Shinigami are trying their best to deal with the huge number of hollows. Basically, every once in a while, a Shinigami from the Gotai 13 team will die in battle. However, the number of hollows in Hukomundo has not decreased. As long as humans in this world still have desires, when they die, they will fall into Hukomundo and evolve into hollows. Compared with the birth of death, the birth and reproduction of Su are faster. If no action is taken, sooner or later, the god of death will be unable to fight against the hollow, and the soul society and the present world will be swallowed up by the hollow. The 11th Squadron is the fighting squad among the Gotai 13th Squadron. When hollows invaded Soul Society, we were the first batch to fight. As the captain of the 11th Squadron, I have the obligation to all voids are eradicated. Mole City Kenpachi's words were firm and contained his belief. Aizen seemed to be meeting Mole City Kenpachi for the first time. He admitted that he had some prejudice against Mole City Kenpachi before, especially after discovering that he was against the whole after the experiments done by the soul. He thought Molijo Kenpachi was a villain who violated Soul Society's ban. After hearing what his master said about Molijo Kenpachi's past, he also thought Molijo Kenpachi was doing it for what happened back then. So he vented his anger on Su. At the moment, it does not seem to be the case. It is true that becoming the captain of the 11th Division and becoming Kenpachi, Mole City Kenpachi had some selfish motives. But after becoming Kenpachi, Mole City Kenpachi did he placed himself above his status as the captain of the Gotai 13. He wanted to destroy the Hollows not for selfish reasons, but for the sake of justice. Not a bad inference. Zayanai once again commented on Mole City Kenpachi. Mole City Kenpachi remained silent. If possible, he actually does not want to destroy all the Hollows, but to transform the human beings in the world so that they will not when desire arises. Kaun was born precisely because of the various desires of human beings in this world. Unfortunately, such a thing is difficult to do. Therefore, he can only settle for the next best thing and try to transform Rukengai. Zhenghan let them fight against Hollow. The soul fell into Hukul and became Hollow. When the soul came to Soul Society, it became Zheng. Logically speaking, Zhuang and Zheng should be at the same level. But Zhuang has powerful power, so if we can find a way to let Zheng also have the same power, then we can use the huge number of Zhong in Soul Society to destroy all the Hollows. What if I told you that the god of death is actually not as weak as you think, and that if he wanted to, he could level the entire Hukomundo? Zayanyi suddenly said to Mole City Kenpachi. Mole City Kenpachi's pupils shrank, shocked by the news. Aizen also suddenly looked at the master in front of him, and he didn't dare to blink. What the master said the news was beyond his expectation. Do you know what you are talking about? Mole City Kenpachi's voice was low. If what Zayanai said is true, the god of death has the ability to flatten Hukomundo. Then he tried to transform the whole soul of Rukengai and use the power of the whole soul to fight against Hukomundo. Isn't it a joke? Because the god of death himself has such power, why bother to bother himself? But on the other hand, since the god of death himself has such power, why should he let the existence of Hollow and Hukomundo be allowed to exist? Existence, instead of destroying Hukomundo. Although Mole City Kenpachi is the captain of the 11th Division. But to be honest, he doesn't know much about the Shinigami. He was born into a noble family and has never been to the Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, is the private school of the nobleman. His knowledge of death was learned in his family. This is also the norm for many conservative nobles. Those conservative nobles look down on common people and think that Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, it is a school for common people, and they are not willing to let the children of their own family go there to study or mix with common people. Mole City Kenpachi grew up in such an environment. Later, the family was destroyed. Mole City, he was the only one left at home. He did not choose to join the Gotai 13, but wandered alone. He witnessed many scenes of hollows invading Soul Society. The soul was weak in front of hollows. This made him think he understood what had happened to him. Although the culprit was a noble, the existence of the hollows was also the root cause. If all the hollows could be eradicated, the soul would not have to suffer the disaster of being attacked by the hollows. So he came up with a plan. To implement this plan, he needed an identity. So he challenged Kariashiki Kenpachi and became the new Kenpachi. After becoming the new Kenpachi, although he did not stay in the 11th division for a long time, the way the god of death sacrificed his life to protect his soul in order to fight against the hollows still moved him. He became more and more determined to his original idea. He must completely destroy Hukomundo and kill all the hollows. Only in this way can the souls living in Soul Society live a stable life. Of course, I know what I'm talking about. Zainai's expression also became serious. When it comes to understanding the world, you are not as good as me. Chapter 47. You are not as good as me. If such words were spoken by others, Mole City Kenpachi would definitely look down upon him and sneer at him. However, for some reason, when such words came out of Xianyi's mouth, Mole City Kenpachi couldn't help but believe them. I don't know why I have the power to believe. Maybe it's the strong self-confidence contained in Zainai's words. As for Aizen, he believed Zainai's words immediately. For the master who knows many secrets, this one thing, after so many years of teaching, he has long accepted. Since you said that the god of death has the ability to destroy Hukomundo, then why does the god of death still allow the existence of hollows instead of eradicating all the hollows in Hukomundo? Mole City Kenpachi asked the biggest question in his heart. If the god of death has no ability, then that's it. But the god of death has enough ability, which is hard to understand. Of course, it's all about balance. Mole City Kenpachi raised his eyebrows. He was obviously seriously injured, but at this moment, he ignored the injuries and just wanted to find out the reason from Zainai. Aizen also asked curiously, "Master, what exactly is the balance between souls?" He really wanted to know about this question. After being admitted to the Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, one of the courses he took was about the responsibilities of the god of death. It was highlighted that the responsibilities of the god of death are in order to maintain the balance between souls. Therefore, the Shinigami needs to fight against the hollows that invade Soul Society and the real world and purify them. However, there is no mention of how to deal with the hollows in Hukomundo. Of course, every other for many years, the Soul Society will also organize an expeditionary force to go to Hukomundo for crusade. But it is only one army, and they do not choose to go out in full force to deal with Hukomundo. Aizen is a curious person, of course. He would also guess the reason. Unfortunately, he couldn't figure it out. Even before this, the master had already told some knowledge about the world as a scale, but it was not detailed. If possible, he would like the master to explain it in more detail. Before mentioning the issue of balance between souls, we need to clarify one thing first. Zion didn't talk about balance directly, but brought up another thing. Fortunately, he didn't talk too much about it and said directly, that is, about the composition of the world. We all know that this world is divided into three parts, namely the world of Kizi, Hukomundo, and Soul Society, and outside these three worlds, there is hell. Hell is the destination of the most evil souls, but of course, that is not the truth. But what we are talking about here has nothing to do with hell, so I won't say more. The three worlds of the present world, Soul Society, and Mundo, are like a triangle. After humans die in the present world, they will fall into one of these two worlds based on their desires and obsessions during life. Among them, souls with deep obsessions will be reorganized in Mundo and degenerate into virtual worlds. Because of the void hole, Sue will have an instinctive desire to devour the same kind in order to fill the hole in their hearts. The soul containing spiritual power is the most delicious food for them. The real world is a world of instruments, and there are relatively few souls containing spiritual power, so there are very few Daxu invading the real world. This is not the case in Soul Society. Soul Society is the place where souls live. Driven by desire, even if the god of death exists here, hollows will still invade here every once in a while. The duty of the god of death is to protect the present world and the Soul Society, and to eliminate the hollows that invade these two worlds. Under normal circumstances, the god of death will not pay attention to the hollows in Mundo. Only when a situation arises will he organize an expeditionary force to go to the Great Hollow Forest in Mundo to purify the Great Hollows in Mundo. What's the situation? Aizen is already a qualified admirer. After Zionai said these words, he immediately took over the conversation and asked. Zionai glanced at Aizen with satisfaction and replied, "That is, Mundo when there are too many voids in the middle. Hollows live by devouring each other. When multiple ordinary hollows devour each other, they will evolve into big hollows. Big hollows are divided into three levels: Killian, Achucus, and Vastod. Their evolution is different from that of ordinary hollows. The method is the same, just by swallowing. When there are too many voids, the number of great voids will naturally increase. They also make a living by devouring spirit suns. The spirit suns needed by Daxu are far more than those of ordinary voids. When the concentration of spirit children in Mundo decreases and is no longer suitable for Sue's survival, they will naturally turn their attention to Soul Society, which is also a world of spirit children. This is not a good thing. In order to avoid such a result, we will send the god of death to go to Mundo first and kill the group of hollows, so that the number of hollows will be reduced and the souls will return to the land of Mundo. Only in this way can a new generation be formed. A virtuous cycle to maintain the stability of Mundo. As for why, it comes down to the world itself. This world is not born like this, but created by man. Its existence is like a triangle and a scale. The instrument world is the lever, and the two spirit worlds are the weights at both ends of the scale. Under normal circumstances, the two worlds are in balance. If the balance of one of the worlds is broken, it will indirectly affect the other two worlds. Speaking of this, both Mole City Kenpachi and Aizen understood what it meant. The world is a scale. If the concentration of souls in Mundo is too low, the balance will tilt towards Soul Society, and the soul world will become heavy, and the world will no longer be stable. On the contrary, if the concentration of Mundo spirits is too high, Mundo will become heavy, and the result will be the same. Compared to the world itself, the souls living in it are an accessory of the spirit sun. If all the hollows are destroyed, there will only be one result. That is, the spirit suns, after the death of all the hollows, will be integrated into the Mundo itself. If the concentration of the spiritual suns of the Mundo is too high, it will become heavy. Think about it. To restore balance to the scales, we can only kill an equal number of souls in Soul Society and let the souls of these souls merge into the earth of Soul Society. As expected, what Xianyi said next verified the Mole City Sword Hachai's guess. As for Aizen, Zionai had told him a lot of relevant knowledge earlier, and the knowledge was not as detailed as this time. Mole City Kenpachi finally understood why the god of death allowed Huko Mundo to exist. It's not that the god of death doesn't want to get rid of all the hollows, but because of the structure of the world itself, they can only allow the hollows to exist. The god of death absorbs the souls and strengthens his own spiritual power, which will make the soul societies, souls, the concentration is too low, and the world itself has a low spirit sun concentration. If a large number of hollows are removed, it will make Huko Mundo, which has a higher spirit sun concentration than soul society, become heavier and further break the balance. Therefore, hollows must exist, but the quantity must also be a certain amount, not too much, not too little. Chapter 48. It turns out that's the case. Mole City Kenpachi couldn't help but murmur to himself. He finally understood the reason for everything. It's not that the god of death doesn't want to get rid of all the hollows, but because the existence of hollows is reasonable, they must exist. Only by existing can Huko Mundo be stable. Whether Huko Mundo is stable or not will directly affect soul society. Who are you? Mole City Kenpachi's eyes fell on Zionai's face, and for the first time he took a serious look at the man who defeated him. Aizen's eyes also quietly fell on his master. He was really curious about his master's origins. Very good. Unfortunately, Xianyi did not give any earth-shattering answer. I am just a teacher at Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy. This answer seems too light and indifferent, and this identity is too ordinary. It is too ordinary for Mole City Kenpachi to accept. So he lost to a teacher from Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy. So his understanding of this world is not even as good as that of a teacher. Of course he knows about the Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy. This is a school specially designed to train death gods. As long as they have the qualifications of death gods, whether they are nobles or civilians, they are all qualified to enter it to study. He did not enter it because he was a noble. And the teachers there, except for the active Shinigami who made guest appearances there, are mostly former Shinigami who retired from the Gotai 13. He is no longer suitable for fighting, but he has extremely rich experience as a Shinigami. What was the identity of the teacher in front of him before he retired and entered the Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy? Master, what kind of past have you had? Coincidentally, Aizen also had such an idea. Forget it, no matter who you are, it doesn't matter anymore. After Mole City Kenpachi was silent for a while, he suddenly said this. He said to Aizen, Team Aizen, take me back to Serete. Although Aizen was also seriously injured, he was still able to move. But it was not the case for him. So many clones were destroyed, and he suffered a backlash that could not be expressed in words. After saying so many words at this moment, he has already it's the end of a strong crossbow. Mole City Kenpachi, what do you want to do? Aizen is very smart. From Mole City Kenpachi, he asked him to take him back to Serete instead of asking his teacher to do such a thing. Obviously, what Mole City Kenpachi is going to do next has nothing to do with Gotaiju. Related to the third team. The teacher is not from the Gotai 13 team. Mole City Kenpachi said calmly, I committed a serious crime, intending to transform the soul of Rukengai and destroy the balance between souls. Such behavior is no longer acceptable. I can no longer serve as the captain of the Gotai 13, so I plan to return to the Serete and surrender. Aizen looked shocked. He never thought that Mole City Kenpachi would make such a choice. After realizing that what he did was wrong, he didn't even hide his fault and directly defended himself. Pay the bill for his mistake and choose to surrender. Mole City Kenpachi is a true hero. Aizen's view of him has completely changed. At first, he thought Mole City Kenpachi was a villain. Later, during the conversation between the opponent and the teacher, his true purpose was revealed, and Aizen's view of him changed somewhat. Now, not only has he changed, he even has some admiration for Mole City Kenpachi. How can you not admire such a hero? You really surprised me. Xian Yi didn't expect that Mole City Kenpachi wouldn't even resist, and was going to surrender directly. He sighed and said to Mole City Kenpachi, "Although you wanted to do such a thing before, I admit that he is a very disciplined person. There aren't many people like you anymore. If you surrender, due to your crime of destroying the balance between souls and the danger posed by your identity, you will probably be imprisoned in the lowest level of the underground prison. Since I did something wrong, I have to pay the price. I don't care where I am imprisoned." Mole City Kenpachi looked calm. "But are you really willing?" Xian Yi seemed to be a little more angry and undisputed. "You abide by the rules so well, but not all nobles abide by the rules. Although your family died due to weakness, the culprits were those nobles. As long as these nobles still exist, even if the world is gone, it will still not be able to restore peace as you imagine." A strange color flashed in Mole City Kenpachi's eyes. Aizen also looked at Xian in surprise. Nobles are a group that Soul Society cannot get around. They are the privileged class in the true sense. From commoners to Shinigami, it just represents itself as a samurai class. However, above the death god, there is also a group of nobles. Even the Gotai 13 must be driven by the Central Room 46. Naturally, the existence of such a privileged class, it will bring a lot of darkness to Soul Society. However, the nobles have ruled Soul Society for a long time, and even the Gotai 13 were established with their support. Even if Aizen saw, there is nothing we can do about these darkness. The only thing that can bring some comfort is that if a noble is found to have violated the laws of Soul Society, he can file a lawsuit with the Central Room 46, and the Central Room 46 will conduct trials on such matters. Of course, because the Central 46th Chamber itself is also a noble, so don't expect them to give severe punishment to those who violate the law. Normally, for the nobles as a group, the Serete all Shinigami are secretive and rarely mention it. I never expected that the master would mention the nobility. He even bluntly said that the nobility is the culprit of the chaos. The nobles who framed my Mole City family are all dead, and what the other nobles do has nothing to do with me. Mole City Kenpachi's expression is still calm. "But you want to protect the world, protect these innocent souls, don't you?" Xian continued. "Although you tried to transform the souls of Rukengai into war weapons, your original intention was to protect the world. The so-called killing is actually to protect lives. It's just because you don't know the truth of the world that you took the wrong path. Now that you know you were wrong, why don't you keep yourself useful and do more for the stability of this world? Atoning for one's sins is also a way of redemption. You don't have to choose to surrender." Chapter 49. Low words kept coming from Xian Yi's mouth. He tried to persuade Mole City Kenpachi. At first, Mole City Kenpachi was indifferent. However, Xian was like a devil who played with people's hearts. He accurately grasped the inner weakness of Mole City Kenpachi. Surrender. Or should he atone for his sins and remain useful to protect the world? Mole City Kenpachi was caught in a tangle. Finally, Xian even mentioned the Shinigami of Team 11 and the Shinigami of Gotai Team 13. In order to maintain the balance between souls, countless gods of death died one after another. You as Kenpachi, carrying the name of Kenpachi as the captain of the 11th Division, but because of a trivial matter, he chose to escape and let his subordinates and those team members face the powerful Hollow. Can you really feel at ease? In other words, after surrendering, can you let these things happen? Don't say every word is precious, only say every word is heartbreaking. Maybe you are right. I really shouldn't surrender. Mole City Kenpachi said to Zionai in a deep voice. After saying this, Zionai knew that Mole City Kenpachi had changed his mind. The reason why he tried to persuade Mole City Kenpachi was because he knew the other party at Mole City Kenpachi. Purpose, after hearing the other party's determination, Xianyi had a feeling that the other party might be able to become his fellow traveler. It was a pity that such a strong man entered Wu Jian like this and kept the punishment of darkness. Moreover, if I remember correctly, the two generations of Kenpachi after Mole City Kenpachi were really a bit embarrassing. First, Gasuke Kenpachi, as the deputy captain, did not go through the Kenpachi succession ceremony to become the new Kenpachi. It turned out that he did not have the ability to become Kenpachi and was later killed by Oniwa Castle, the villain from Rukengai. During the Oniwa Castle period, the 11th Division was a mess, and they waited until Kenpachi Zaraki came to power. This kind of the trend has just been reversed. Although Zionai was once the captain of the 12th Division, he had a close relationship with the first captain of the 11th Division, Anohana Ritsu, and he did not want to see the 11th Division decline because of this. In the following time, Zionai showed his superb reply, and the injuries on Mole City Kenpachi and Aizen healed quickly under his treatment. It was also the first time that Aizen knew that his master had mastered the return path, in addition to his exquisite abilities, such as Ghost Path. Although Zionai often went to treat Yukitake Jashiro before. But in private, he did not tell Aizen these things. Mole City Kenpachi was also a little emotional. He originally planned to go to the 4th Division for treatment after returning to Serete, but now it seems that there is no need for it. After dealing with the injuries of the two people, Zionai seemed to have realized something and said to Mole City Kenpachi and Aizen, "It seems that your previous battle has aroused the vigilance of the Gotai 13. But it's not surprising. In order to be able to deal with such emergencies as soon as possible, the Technology Development Bureau's spiritual wave monitoring devices are deployed everywhere in Seoul society. The spiritual pressure released by your previous battles is undoubtedly captain level. Of death gods of this level are fighting here, and it is impossible to ignore them no matter what." Mole City Kenpachi raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. Aizen's expression was also a little solemn. Zionai comforted them and said, "Don't worry, this is an old acquaintance of mine. I will explain it clearly to him." As he spoke, he stood up and waited silently on the battlefield that had become messy and devastated due to the previous battle. After waiting for a while, a man wearing a coat was seen outside the Captain Yuzhai. A figure in colorful clothes arrived here. "Spring water, you came really quickly." After seeing the person coming, Xian Yi's low words came out, and he said hello to the other party. Jingla Shunshui stopped and looked at Xian Yi, a little surprised. Then he came back to his senses and said to Xian Yi, "Me too unexpectedly, the previous commotion was actually caused by senior Xian Yi. Zainai Senpai is not staying at Serete, so how come he has time to come to Rukengai?" Zainai's expression did not change. Facing Kairaku Shunsui's scrutinizing gaze, he said calmly, "Serete is only so big, and it would be boring to stay in Serete all the time. But this is not the case in Rukengai. The area is much larger than that of Serete. Can't I just come here and have some fun?" Yeah, Jingraku Shunsui naturally cannot believe Zainai because of his words. At least, it is impossible to make such a big noise just by walking around. There is no doubt that a spiritual wave reaction of that level is possible. Captain level Shinigami are fighting here. Now, after seeing Zayanai, one of them can be identified as Zayanai. What about the other person? Who is the other person? Zayanai felt Kairaku Shunsui's gaze and continued, I know what you are thinking, and I won't hide it from you. Previously, I had a discussion with Mole City Kenpachi here. Kairaku Shunsui's heart froze. Immediately afterwards, he felt the spiritual veins of two Shinigami and saw Mole City Kenpachi and Aizen arriving here one after another. Facing Kairaku Shunsui's curious eyes, Mole City Kenpachi said, Yes, I had a sparring session with him. He didn't say the outcome of the competition. In fact, he still doesn't know Zayanai's true origin. However, since Kairaku Shunsui knew Zayanai and called Zayanai his senior, it can be seen that Zayanai is an extremely ancient god of death, because Kairaku Shunsui is not young. Among the many captains of the Gotai 13, he is definitely considered senior. That's it. Mole City Kenpachi personally admitted this matter. Although Kairaku Shunsui still had many questions in his heart, he couldn't say much. After all, Mole City Kenpachi was a captain at the same level as him, and he was the most powerful among the captains. A special Kenpachi. Putting away the many doubts in his mind, Kairaku Shunsui looked at Aizen next to Kenpachi of Mole City. Then, 5th Division 13 seat, member Aizen, why did you show up? What about here? Aizen wanted to answer. Zayanai gave the answer first. He came here with me. Don't you know that he is my disciple? Xian Yi directly revealed the master-disciple relationship between him and Aizen. This surprised Kairaku Shunsui again. He really didn't know this. This made him look at Aizen deeply. One glance. Chapter 50. If it was before the Gotai 13 was established, or not long after it was established. In Rukengai, the spiritual wave reaction when a captain-level warrior breaks out in battle will not be taken seriously by the Gotai 13. After all, the Soul Society used to be very chaotic. Even if after the Gotai 13 was established, there were still many strong men hiding in Rukengai. But not now. Soul Society, or in other words, the order of this world, has gradually evolved from disorder to order. Nowadays, the god of death has taken it as his own responsibility to maintain the balance between souls. We will not let go of any behavior that may undermine the stability of Soul Society. A captain-level Shinigami, in terms of strength, can already shake the stability of Soul Society. Kairaku Shunsui came here because the spirit waves of this level of Shinigami collided in Rukengai. Captain Yamamoto was worried about what might happen, so he sent him out. Unexpectedly, the two sides fighting were actually Zayanai, who had retired, and Mole City Kenpachi, who had just become Kenpachi not long ago. Xian Yi and Mole City Kenpachi both said so. What else could he say? I can only accept this result. As for why Aizen, the chief officer of the 5th Division, appears here. Xian Yi also gave the answer. Although the answer surprised Kairaku Shunsui, he could barely accept it. After the establishment of the Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, most of the souls with the qualifications of the Shinigami went to study at the Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy, but the private teacher-disciple teaching behavior actually still exists. It's just that more of them exist among the nobles. Unexpectedly, while Zayanai was teaching at Zhenyang, he also accepted a disciple who was not a nobleman. Aizen Xiaosyuk, what is so special about you that you can be accepted as a disciple by such a person? Kairaku Shunsui had some curiosity. That's pretty much it. In the first team, after Kairaku Shunsui came back, he immediately came to meet with the Captain Genrusai Shijikuni Yamamoto and reported the whole story to Captain Yamamoto. After listening to Kairaku Shunsui's report, The captain, his eyes flickered for a while, making Jingraku Shunshui retreat temporarily. I understand. You can destroy it. Kingraku, Shunsui nodded. After Kaioraku Shunsui left, Captain Yamamoto began to seriously examine the matter again. A fight broke out between Genya and Molijo Kenpachi in Rukungai. It is really intriguing. These two, logically speaking, it should be difficult for individuals to have intersections with each other. However, they happen to have intersections and even fought in Rukungai. Captain Yamamoto always felt that there was something hidden in it. But he couldn't just tell them directly. Mole City Kenpachi called over and asked the other party why. After all, the other party was the captain of the 11th Division, a man who bore the name of Kenpachi. Before Kakariyoshiki Kenpachi died, he also got rid of Kaioraku Shunsui and told him, let him take care of Mole City Kenpachi. He may not believe Mole City Kenpachi, but he believes in Kariashiki Kenpachi. Captain Yamamoto decided to send someone to investigate secretly first. If there is nothing major, this matter will be over. That's good. As for the 5th Division Commander Aizen, he was accepted as a disciple by Zainai. Captain Yamamoto was not too surprised, but secretly listed Aizen as an observation object. Aizen didn't know that he was, because of this incident, was targeted by Captain Yamamoto. But even if he knew, he didn't care. Because Kyoka Suiatsu's ability is so good at disguise. With the ability of this sword, no one can really see the real him. Mole City Sword, although Ba secretly carried out experiments with whole souls, so far, the experiments have not been successful. Moreover, he has only been conducting experiments for a short time. As he stopped, the captain's people were able to find out the clues before there was a problem. In the end, there was a problem. Because there were no clues to prove that Mole City Kenpachi had done anything wrong, the matter came to an end like this. As Zainai said, Captain Yamamoto had no intention of going to him for questioning from the beginning. To put it harshly, if you point it out, if a Shinigami of Zainai's level is willing to live in the Serete and accept your supervision, he already thinks highly of you. After leaving that place, Zainai's status has already surpassed that of the Gotai 13. He is above the Shinigami. If he is willing, he can choose to leave without returning to the Serete. After all, this world is too big. For the Shinigami who is no longer in the Gotai 13, or in other words, has transcended the Gotai 13. Even Captain Yamamoto can't control it. Hey, Master, you once said that this world was created by man. Genu Spiritual Arts Academy, in Zainai's room. Aizen, who has officially entered the eyes of many big shots, does not care about the attention of the captain, Kaioraku Shunsui, and others. He still comes to Zainai every once in a while and looks towards Zainai. Yi asked the question. Sure enough, Aizen noticed an important point that Zainai mentioned when he told Mole City Kenpachi about the balance between souls. How could a person like Aizen not take this matter into consideration? Keep in mind. Good. Xianyi looked at Aizen and nodded. Could it be the Spirit King? After Aizen got the exact answer, he immediately guessed the person who opened this world. Among the many records about the Death God, there is a king. This king is the Spirit King. The Spirit King's family is called the Royal Family. This is a family that is superior to the 5 nobles. Unfortunately, so far, no one has seen the true face of the Spirit King or a member of the royal family. But this does not affect the god of death's knowledge that there is a respected person above his head. The matter of the king. How much do you really know about the Spirit King and the 5 nobles? Zainai asked Aizen seriously. Aizen was stunned and then whispered, I don't know much about the Soul King, but I know a little about the five nobles. They are in the Gotai 13. The five great nobles who existed before the establishment of the army had a high status. Many nobles in the Serete respected them. The status of the five nobles is naturally lofty, so why do they have such a high status? Have you ever thought about it? Zion continued to ask Aizen. Aizen frowned and couldn't understand. Looking at the confused Aizen, Zion said again, "In addition, there is another thing you said wrong. They are not only in Gotai. The 13th team existed before the establishment, but existed before the world was opened up, in the era of chaos where there was no birth or death.